Oh, there's Councilwoman Sawyer coming on. Well, we will have a few people joining us, I'm sure, as we get started. So I'll thank all of you who are here. I think it'll be a good meeting tonight. And as you know, we'll keep it right on time. So welcome, everybody. I did send around the minutes. Susan, thank you again for taking minutes. And I sent around also the attachments from our last meeting. So has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Anybody have any comments? Or could we just have a wave of somebody motioning to approve those? Good, thank you, both Councilwoman Sawyer and Linda. So we'll count those as approved, and we'll move right into council person's comments. And Councilwoman Sawyer, I saw you. I'd like you to unmute and tell us what's going on in your world, as if you weren't, busy enough.
Well, thanks, Lou. I really appreciate it. And hi, everybody. So what is going on at the council office? We are very busy looking at a couple of different things. Number one, we're looking at a design standards overlay along Colfax between Sherman and Yosemite. It's called the DO8 overlay. Technically speaking, it's called the Active Centers and Corridors Use Overlay. The purpose of it is to help promote a more walkable space along Colfax as the BRT is built for future developments. Doesn't apply to existing development, obviously. And we can talk a little more about specifics if you would like at some time. It's very boring, nerdy zoning stuff. But the goal is to really make it a more welcoming space for small businesses, for pedestrians as Colfax redevelops in the future. We are also looking at the Montclair neighborhood, potentially considering doing an ADU rezoning to allow for ADUs on all parcels in the Montclair neighborhood. So we're going to have two community meetings coming up about that. The first one is going to be Wednesday the 8th. I'm looking at Logan. If I mess that up, Logan, let me know. Wednesday the 8th, and the second, that's going to be online. And then the second community meeting is going to be in person at the Mulkery. And that's going to be on Tuesday the 14th. So please join us if you're interested in that. I have no opinion whatsoever. I personally believe that ADUs are a good way to help maintain the character of the neighborhood while adding some diversity of housing stock to neighborhoods. But I really want to hear from the community what my residents think about that and whether it's something they would like the council office to pursue. So that's why we're having that conversation. We also are doing a traffic study. We have hired a traffic study every year for the past few years to look at different roads that are not focused on by Dottie within District 5. So this year we are looking at Uinta Way between 11th Avenue and Lowry Boulevard. It's not a place where we see a ton of traffic, but when we do see traffic there, it's bad because we've got Match Buff High School and we've got some different medical offices down to the south. We also see street racing along Lowry Boulevard, and they escape up Uinta past those houses to get out of town. And we also see some fast driving coming down from East Colfax and some of the things that are happening there. So we're hoping to take a look at that and make it more welcoming and safe for pedestrians and bikers in that area. And what else do we have going on that we've got a lot going on between campaigning and, office initiatives. Happy to answer any questions and really looking forward to Cherry Creek and Country Club becoming a part of District 5 in July of 2017 of July 17th of 2023. But we, interestingly, you all, as residents of Cherry Creek and Country Club, will vote on the new District 5 council member in April of 2023, even though the transition doesn't happen until July of 2023, when the new administration and mayor's office is sworn in. So a little bit confusing, but happy to answer any questions. And Logan, please let me know if there is something I have forgotten, because I know there's like 10 million other things that we're up to right now.
I don't think so right now.
Awesome. If there aren't any questions, folks, just go down to the reaction button and click on your raise hands. But Councilwoman, thank you for being here. I know how busy you are because I've been keeping track of you, and it's hard to keep track of all of you. So Councilman Cashman, thank you for being here. And I would like to have it turned over to you to give us an update. And I think you're running unopposed. Is that right?
I am blessedly running unopposed, and I don't use that word lightly. It's the councilwoman is working hard for District 5, working hard to try and get reelected, and she's got a family at home. It's a full plate, absolutely. But thank you, Lou. I appreciate it. It's good to see everybody. I'll take 90 minutes of material and put it into about a minute and a half. We're also looking at the possibility, that DO8 overlay, which basically is designed to maintain the neighborhood shopping district character of some of our retail areas. And I'm looking at it for a couple of retail districts in District 6 as well. It's proved very successful in other parts of the city, and think it may have some application close by. I'm also excited with the geographic change in July. I push a little bit closer to Cherry Creek. I've always told people I find it very amusing that District 6 in the Denver Country Club area has the back 9 up to the creek. And then I believe District 10 has the front 9 in the clubhouse. In the new redistricting, I pick up portions of the Belcaro neighborhood, Miller Park, and some other areas between Exposition and the creek. I've tried to be a good citizen, but they just won't let me cross Cherry Creek into the actual neighborhood. I've been working for the past year and a half to try to get our current mayor to stand up an office of community empowerment, community engagement that would work with the RNOs and other nonprofits doing community building work to, with funding, with education, with legal assistance, the tools that our community groups need and deserve to do the job that they were empowered with when the neighborhood ordinance, the RNO ordinance was crafted in 1979, where the results of the study that I was able to get funded in this in the 2022 budget will be coming in the next couple of weeks. And I expect it to give great support for that concept, which cities around the country have taken to. Hopefully our next mayor will give it more serious look. I've been very involved in, I'm on the mayor's children's cabinet through the Office of Children's Affairs, and very concerning the state of our youth and our families right now. It's something we could talk for hours. But yeah, the sheriff talked about the fact that he's seeing more youth in his jails for more and more serious crimes that he's never seen before. During the pandemic, 2/3, 67% of Denver's child care centers went out of business and have not reopened. Our after-school programming is at its lowest level in years. So, we're all looking at crime. We're all looking at trying to get our unhoused population housed, trying to build a sufficient inventory of housing so our workforce can live here too. No less getting our homeless off the street. But I'll leave it there for now. Really appreciate a minute to say hi and look forward to hearing your agenda tonight.
Well, Councilman Cashman, we really appreciate you being here. You are really close to us, even closer now, and we have really so many common interests, and I think it's going to take us all working together to see some of the changes that are coming to the neighborhood be implemented. And thank you a million times over for your work on the RNO programs. We've been following it for years along with you. And I hope you are correct. I hope you have not only a mayor that supports you, but other council persons who will support you in your effort to make that a reality. And again, thank you for working so hard on it. Councilwoman Sawyer has her hand up, so I'm going to push it back over to her for a moment.
Thanks, Lou. Sorry, I did forget to mention one thing that is really important and I wanted you guys to know about. So one of our lieutenants, our new lieutenants in Police District 3, has come up with a program to try and deter car thefts. It's a pilot program that is going to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks, and it's a really interesting program. It is modeled after a program in Cook County, Illinois. It's a little bit like when you put an ADT sign in your front yard, and then that like tells anyone who might be considering a home invasion to go to your next door neighbor because you've got an alarm system. So it's a sticker that would go on the window of your vehicle, and then you register your vehicle with the police department. And that then gives them the ability to, if your car gets stolen, they can turn on your OnStar or your LoJack, or if you have like an air tag in your car or anything like that, and they can track it and go get it for you. So we don't have one of those really sad situations like we had a couple of weeks ago where someone tracked their own vehicle and ended up in a shootout with a young man who was 12 years old who had stolen the car. So it's really great. It's also meant to be a deterrent because the second sort of piece of the plan is that they would bring the sticker into the jails and work with people who are incarcerated for car theft and educate, like, hey, if you see this sticker, stay away from the car because we have the right to track it down. So it's kind of twofold. You should have Lieutenant Ryan Harris is the guy who came up with this plan in Denver. He's one of our District 3 officers. He's amazing. He did all the research and all the work himself. It's a very cool program. I know he'd love to come and present it to you all, but wanted to flag it for you and just let you know that it's coming because I think that it will make a difference in the future.
Thank you very much. I think you presented on your council cabinet on that a little bit, and let's get it out there. I think it's really exciting, and thank you for holding those. It's always very informative. And I know that Haley is here. I do not see Councilman Hines unless he's on the next screen. So
it's just me tonight, Lou.
Okay, well, we're happy to have you, and I know how busy they are. I have been watching as many of the council forum or debates, they're really more forums, as I can. And I did see the District 10 one that was held by the RNOs, the downtown and lower downtown. Really well done. And so pass along to Councilman Hines. I know he's working hard, and I know he's had some hurdles, and we just, Godspeed on getting through all of those because it's a lot right now. So please do update us on District 10.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind for our office. I'm sure you have all seen at this point, but we've been covered by a lot of news outlets, and I actually went on vacation. And I do comms. So I had to get back online to help out with the comms for our office during that time, but really happy to bring this to everyone's attention. So but what our office is working on is we're also collaborating with D5 and some of the other districts on the DOA overlay that also goes into our areas of Colfax. It's been great to work with Councilwoman Sawyer and her staff. On top of that, we know that there's been an ongoing conversation with Cherry Creek West, and we do want to acknowledge that even though this is probably going to pass pass when Councilman Hines is not representing D10, we're definitely still invested in definitely watching it and want to make sure that you folks feel represented and that your needs are properly communicated. So definitely still watching that. Thank you for everyone that's included us in those conversations. Really appreciate it. And then lastly, we know that the curbside plan is going to be released out soon. I know Lou and Annette have been super helpful, and Scott only had great things to say about your work on that stakeholder group. So we are looking forward to making sure that all the folks are in communication about that, but I'm sure that you will do your due diligence with getting that information out. But it looks like outreach is going to start in May. So we'll still be here to help you folks out with that. And that's pretty much it. Happy to
Thank you
answer any
very
questions.
much.
Yeah.
I will just pick up on a couple of those points. So Annette and I had a call just last week with Scott Burton. He was a teeny tiny little piece of the presentation on Denver Moves at the public meeting on the 8th. But he followed up, and I have to say it's wonderful that really he listens. He takes comments very seriously, and you know, Annette has been terrific at kind of identifying the things on that little section of Adams that's so close to transition into the bid in the CMX5 area. So he's done a great job. I do plan to ask him, because he's still working on some things and reacting to some things. And when that is sort of ready for prime time, I would like him to come to the steering committee and present, because that is impactful for so many of us here on the steering committee. So there will be some changes. I think you had a hint of what those were when he last presented to the steering committee, but we will be bringing that forth as soon as possible. I would imagine maybe even at the next meeting, if not April for sure. There's certainly a lot going on, and I'm going to move us on because we have some terrific folks here who are going to update us on Denver Moves Cherry Creek. Still I think a moving target a little bit, but I am going to make, Paige, who would you like me to make the co-host? Or oops, you have to unmute, I'm sorry.
Okay, Sydney's going to share her screen.
Okay,
You
let
can
me make
give-
her a co-host. Okay, and if all you want to go up to the top right corner and to the view and click on speaker view, that might be more helpful in this presentation. I know I like to keep everyone in front of me when we're not on a presentation, but with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Paige.
Thanks so much.
And Sydney.
Hey everybody, I'm Paige Colton. I've presented to this group before, and I recognize many faces here at our public meetings or our stakeholder group meetings. So thank you all who's involved in this project so far. I'm with the Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and joined by my colleague Sydney Provin, who's with Fair and Peers, so the consulting firm that's helping out with this project. We are about midway through this project, which is really exciting. So coming to here with an update and some calls to action, some requests for input, and wanted to get all of your ideas if there are any other opportunities for input that you can all think of. We're going to run through just really briefly the presentation that we did in the public meeting, just to refresh everyone's memory if it's been a while since you've heard from this project. But we'll try to get through this front material as quickly as possible and then open it up for brainstorming for other outreach opportunities, and then answer any questions that you might have. So just briefly, so project overview. So Denver Moves Cherry Creek is a little bit more than a year-long planning effort to develop a cohesive strategy for multimodal and green infrastructure development in the Cherry Creek area. And our goal is to achieve the city's mobility goals and make it safer and more convenient to walk, bike, take transit, deliver goods, and drive in and around Cherry Creek. Our main project objectives are threefold. The first is we really want to make sure we're taking into account existing and recommended plans and projects that have already happened. We've heard a lot from you all that a lot of planning has already been done in the area, and we definitely don't want to repeat any of that. But we also want to make sure anything that hasn't been constructed or implemented yet gets worked into this plan, so that we have it all in front of us to be able to make better decisions about what's going to move the needle the best in Cherry Creek. Secondly, we really want to perform robust community outreach. And that means reaching out to groups like yours, RNOs, the bid, businesses, the mall, and neighborhoods in general, residents in general, to really understand needs and kind of opportunities that we see, or we can all see in the area. And then lastly, we want a really clear strategy forward. So our main objective with this is develop an implementation plan that will help us move these projects forward. So just a refresher on our project area, greater than just the Cherry Creek neighborhood specifically. So we've got Colorado Boulevard to the east. We really wanted to include all the major arterials that really cut off Cherry Creek from the rest of the city. So we've got 6th and 8th Ave to the north, Corona and Downing to the west, and then the Cherry Creek and a little bit of Billicaro as well to the south. Okay, so project process. This is kind of a high level summary. Happy to send a more detailed version if anyone's interested or curious. Starting mid last year, we did our first public round of outreach, which is really about asking people how they currently get around, what their challenges are, what they saw as potential opportunities. We also took a look at previous planning efforts, all the different data that we have that shows us how people are moving around Cherry Creek and where the problem spots are. And we've compiled all of that into a state of the system analysis. It's really quite comprehensive. We have kind of a bridge summary online, but we also have the full report if anyone's interested in reading it. I know a few people here have, so that's much appreciated. We are now in kind of the second main phase of this project, which is developing a comprehensive project list and prioritizing those projects. So right now we're reaching out to the community to ask what projects are your highest priority out of all of our big project list. And then if you have any edits to those projects. So are we missing anything? Should something be amended? Are we not quite hitting the nail on the head for what is needed? Kind of at the same time as we're doing this outreach push, we're also doing a modeling and scenario planning exercise. And the purpose of this is to look 30 years or so into the future and say, Cherry Creek could look like a lot of different things. The city could look like a lot of different things. And so what we want to do is consider 3 possible futures and say, if each of these possible futures happens, will we still be able to get to our mobility goals with the list of projects that we have? And one great thing about this analysis is we're going to be running a model, a transportation model that helps understand in 30 years what will happen with the transportation system in that time period. We'll be able to account for different land use considerations. So we'll be able to take into account possible development and what the implications would be on the transportation system as a whole. So that's an exciting component of this project that we'll be doing. And then starting later this year, so kind of late spring, early summer, we'll be really diving into our implementation plan. And that includes diving into additional project details. So we'll be able to get really into the nitty gritty with which intersections need improvements, what those improvements look like. We'll have visuals that show what the corridor, looking at a cross section of each major street will look like. We'll be diving into cost estimates, phasings, what partnership opportunities there are, funding opportunities to get these delivered. So it'll be kind of the meat of the project. We're really excited to get there, but we're kind of working through this process to make sure we have a solid grounding first before we dive into these project details. And we'll also be running that implementation plan by the public, by you all, in our third public outreach push at that point. So that's the summary of the bulk of this project. We also have a bit of additional funding that we can do some sort of pilot project with. We haven't kind of settled on what that looks like. It really depends on what comes out as a priority, what might be doable with the money we have or within a shorter time frame, or if there's a project that we think, boy, this is a really big project, it would make a huge impact. Let's see if we can get started on the design of that project and make it more competitive for funding in the future. We could also spend the money there. So that'll continue to be a conversation with you all, with our steering committee, within the city as well, to figure out what that looks like. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Sydney to dive a little bit more into our project story map.
Page, you can all still see this website I just pulled up, right? So this is the story map or project outreach website that we've created. So I'm going to spend a little time orienting all of you to it, and it's one of the ways that we're collecting feedback on our kind of big projects list that we have right now, and we'll be using all of that input that we were getting through this website, through office hours that Paige has been hosting, having one-on-one conversations, through the input we've been getting from meetings like this. We'll be using all of that in the next phase of really refining this project list, pulling out those priorities, and moving those projects into the next stage of understanding and detail. So on this project website, we've got that nice project overview that Paige already covered. And up here, if you kind of scroll past this first little header, there's tabs that you can click on to jump to the different areas on this website. So if you just want to get to one really quickly, that's the best way, so you don't have to scroll through, because there's a lot of information on this site. So the first one I'll point out, the first tab after the project overview is our state of the system summary. So you can scroll through all this information and get a good high level takeaways and maps and data from our existing conditions, state of the system assessment. Also here, I'll point out, there's a link to that full report that Paige mentioned. So if any of you haven't seen that yet, this is one place that you can find that and read through it if you're really interested in taking a deep dive in that full report. Otherwise, this summary should include a lot of the information that we included there. In addition to that data side of the state of the system, we've also summarized on this website the public input we conducted and some of the high level takeaways from that process. And then the tab called opportunity areas are even higher level kind of big takeaways we took from both the public input and our data analysis. So, and then once you get through those first 4 tabs, which is kind of the recap of everything that's been done so far, the next tab is draft projects for feedback, where you'll actually find maps and tables of all of those projects, previous efforts, new projects that you've come up with based on the public input, the analysis, looking at the full network. So I'll come back to these in just a moment, but I want to kind of orient you to the whole site, and then we'll jump back to the draft projects. There's ways to give feedback on the draft projects themselves. There's also a survey where you can provide just more open-ended comments, and also provide your email address if you wish to receive more specific updates. And then the final page, this is the exploratory scenario planning that Paige referenced in her overview. So you can see a little bit about where we're going with that scenario modeling. So here we have kind of the drivers of change that our model is going to be looking at: density and growth, travel behavior, technology, cost of travel, equity, and effects of climate change. And we're going to be using different possible futures of these different drivers of change to create our future scenarios that we will be looking at in that transportation model. So if you're curious, and we can jump back to this later if people want to look more deeply at these, but these are the scenarios we've come up with. So status quo is if the growth, which we know is a lot of growth, continues as is in Cherry Creek, that's what this status quo is at a very high level. So this is including all of the planned projects that we know of so far, as well as the projected growth that the Dr. Cog regional model has kind of assigned for this area. Then we have the regional hub, which is assuming even more gross and more densely concentrated growth in Cherry Creek, but also regionally, so that the way things grow is more in these kind of hubs, central locations that become very dense and urban. And then our final scenario is distributed growth. So this is assuming that a little bit less of a dense development pattern in Cherry Creek and regionally as well, just more distributed growth rather than these dense, urbanized, more maybe transit friendly hubs. This third one is more distributed and likely to gear the travel patterns a bit more away from the walking and biking and active modes due to the development patterns. So that's a high level of that explanation, which we know there's a lot here, but I'll move on to the project maps to make sure we have enough time to look at those and then open it up for some questions. So as I mentioned, this is one way that people can give feedback on our project list. If anyone's not as comfortable with this web format, again, we have those one-on-one office hours that people can sign up for to talk through the different projects we're coming up with and priorities that they have. So the way these maps work, there's 5 of them. We have pedestrian, bicycle, scooter projects, multimodal projects, which are, you know, big corridor projects or neighborhood traffic calming projects that really integrate a lot of modes together, transit projects, urban amenities projects, and then we have a map of the current plans for new and upgraded sidewalks as far as the Department of Transportation Infrastructure has laid out so far. So those are all the maps that are included in here if you kind of keep scrolling down. But I'll start orienting just with this pedestrian, bicycle, and scooter projects map. So on the left-hand side, you can see the different types of projects from protected bike lane, neighborhood bikeway, new shared use paths or upgraded shared use paths. And the way you can interact with this map is you can either look at the different locations that are listed on the right side and click on them. Or if you know where you want to go, you can kind of zoom around on the map, look for your particular intersection that you're most interested in, and click on it. Once you click on a project, you will see where the project originally came from. So this one says Vision Zero's project lists. You'll have a short project description. You'll see kind of the high level project type that it's symbolized by. And then there's this thing called number of upvotes. If you click on this part down here, it actually upvotes that project. It means that's a priority for you. If you click on this little speech bubble, you can add a comment, which might be further encouragement. It might be that you don't like that project. It might be that you have a different vision of what that project should look like. So we'll be taking more specific comments that way. And then if you see, I go back to our kind of main list here, you can look at the list and see other projects that people have upvoted. So this little number with the heart on the side is all the upvotes that community members have given these projects. So you can see the 7th Avenue intersection and crossing, 7th Avenue and Colorado Boulevard intersection and crossing improvements was one that got a lot of traction. So we would encourage you all, if you're comfortable with this website form, to take a look through there, click through the projects, upvote and comment as much as you'd like. Or if you prefer more of a one-on-one dialogue past this meeting, signing up for the office hours is another great way to do that. I'll also point out there are some recommendations we have come up with so far that are not location specific, aren't as easy to pinpoint on a map. So we've created these tables following each map of kind of more general or area-wide recommendations that we'll be refining in that next stage as well. So that's a kind of a quick tutorial there. And then I'll mention again, we have this survey following those maps where you can add missing projects. If you just prefer to give feedback this way, that's fine as well. There's also some questions about those kind of non-location specific projects that you can give feedback on as well. I think that's the big tutorial for this website so far.
Sydney, could you tell people how long this will be open to comment? And is it okay for people who are really not comfortable with working through this format? Whether, you know, do they have to do office hours? Can they send an email to you or to Paige and just get their concepts out there?
Yes, that's a great point. Thanks, Lou. And Paige, do you remember, sorry, I'm remembering the range, but do you remember the exact date we had said to keep the map open, Paige?
Yes, I think it was March 16th. So that's mid-March.
It's March, but I don't want to say the wrong date.
Yes, yes.
Great.
Yeah, so it's Thursday, March 16th.
And yes, to your point, Lou, like I said, we've got the story map and office hours, but we've also put this email, Denver moves Cherry Creek at denvergov.org. And that goes to our project team, and we're making sure to collect all of that input and integrate it in with all of the input we're getting from these other sources too. So we can throw all of these links in the chat. So it's really easy for people to get in touch with us, whatever way they feel most comfortable. So want to open it up? Oh yeah, go ahead, Paige.
So happy to take any questions or talk about any projects anyone's particularly interested in, you know, working within the time constraints that Lou's given us here. But we did want to ask one main question, which is, you know, if you represent an RNO that we haven't come and spoken with yet, or you're a member of an RNO or other organization that you think would be really interested in a presentation or kind of walking through these project maps more holistically, we're happy to come and do that. So please let us know if you can think of any other opportunities to engage your community.
Did you end up presenting to Cherry Creek East? I know there was some interest.
We were planning on presenting to Cherry Creek East tomorrow, but it sounds like there wasn't quite a large enough group. So we ended up, so they ended up just canceling the meeting.
What other RNOs in these districts have you presented to specifically?
So we are presenting to the Country Club next month, and that is our only RNO presentation that we have scheduled for this outreach period. We also are meeting with business owners and managers tomorrow that are part of the bid. And then we also presented to Kavod, the assisted living apartment buildings earlier this week as well, and got their feedback. But we were hoping this is a great opportunity to, you know, get in touch with all the different neighborhoods, and we'd love to get on any agendas we can.
One of the problems is it's just, you know, right now in the election season, like our RNO is having, which is on the agenda,
Yes.
the candidate forum that's going to take up, if we can even wedge that into our time. So it is difficult to get this out there. I'm curious how Kavod, how those residents reacted to this kind of understanding, because I know a lot of people that have had trouble working in this mapping. So how did that go?
Yeah, so what we did with the Kavod residents was we just fielded kind of concerns and opportunities, kind of led that conversation rather than diving into the map specifically, because we knew, you know, many people wouldn't be familiar with these online tools, but we've definitely given them all the resources if they want to engage further.
Brooks had a question about if you could just comment about how the shared streets study relates to this.
Yeah, that's a great question, Barks. So the shared use project or program development is what I call it, is going on right now. And we are, we're in communication with that project. They have this big map that they're soliciting input on to ask where the city wants shared streets, where people want shared streets. And they asked us to take a look specifically in the Cherry Creek area because a lot of streets in Cherry Creek meet their kind of qualifications for what could be a shared street. So we dove in specifically at our public meeting to direct people to go to their website to give input on shared streets. But we'll also, whatever comes out of this project will inform what becomes a shared street in this area as well. So we're kind of linked closely with their project. Their project is citywide, ours is very area specific, but we'll influence each other, I guess, as we move along. Sydney, do you remember?
A quick question about shared streets. I didn't think that it could happen within a certain distance of commercial streets or streets where there was commercial activity.
I don't remember, Sydney, from our presentation, what qualifications were required for streets. Do you recall?
I believe there's a different type of shared streets for commercial areas. So there's kind of the residential shared streets, shared street, which is a lot more restricted. And then there's a kind of different definition and treatment type that would be used in a commercial area. And I don't have like the exact definition of what that is off the top of my head, but we can pull up that shared streets definition and share it with you.
I know that, I'm going to see if there are any other questions. I know that for our Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association, Linda Barker has been working on the task force where they're looking at use of sidewalks to the curb, that was something I think that would include commercial areas. So restaurants being able to utilize areas of the sidewalks and then the parking area in ways that they did during the pandemic to expand seating. So I know that is going on as yet another project. And I know that's fairly early. I don't know, Linda, would you like to, I have to find you. Would you like to comment on that at all and where that is?
Sure. We recently just had a focus group and they, like Lou said, they're really focusing on above curve at this point, and then they will progress into the below curve and then permanent patio structures. So I think it's critical that is kind of combined with what we're talking about today, especially the below curve who goes into the streets. That also connects to the shared street initiative. So all three of these are kind of bubbling on at the same time, and they're all under construction at this point, really at the focus group gathering input period. So to have these all come together is really critical.
And so I think that's a really good point. Thank you for that update, Linda. And I assume that the bid, and Nick or Richard, if he's here, may want to comment on that, but all these things really need to be considered together when those of us who hear from people that, oh gosh, we have trouble parking or getting into Cherry Creek with all the construction and so on and so forth. So we want to make sure that when we think about transit and we think about shared streets and we think about parking, we really think about how we make it easy for people to get into our neighborhood, to frequent the bid, the shops, the restaurants, and it's critical. So we really have to think broadly and also have all of those stakeholders at the table. And I'm appreciative of the people who sit on these committees because there are a lot of calls on this stuff, but it's hard to look through one lens when there are all these sort of peripheral issues and splintered programs. So We do have to watch them all. And I know that there was a question here from Alan. How will the proposed addition of 300 units to the Belcaro King Super site and the continued infill of higher density residential development on Colorado Boulevard affect Denver Moves Cherry Creek? You want to take that page? Or
Yeah,
Cindy?
definitely. Yeah. Thanks, Alan. That's a great question. So as we mentioned with our scenario planning process and that 2050 travel model that we'll be running, we're taking into account all of the large development that is proposed in the Cherry Creek area over the next few years. So I think it includes that 300 unit you're discussing, and then the higher density residential development in Colorado. So we're taking all that into account and are considering it when we run our models to understand the impacts on the transportation system. And then kind of jointly, will our projects be sufficient? Do we need to modify them to be able to adapt to those changes? Those are the questions we'll be able to take a look at. So great question.
I think Councilwoman Sawyer signed off a little bit, but Logan was going to stay. I think Mary indicated that the Hilltop Association would be trying to reach out to you to get something. We would like to get something again in Cherry Creek North. But again, I think that that window closing, it puts a little pressure on, but I'm assuming that just like the curbside action plan and focus group, that once things start really solidifying, there's always room for comment. And one of the things I think we were talking about not too long ago was that, you know, a lot of us, you know, this isn't our first rodeo talking about First Avenue. And we've been in, I think as long as I moved into the Cherry Creek area in '85. So as long as I've been here, there have been discussions about how we move people through this I-25 light corridor, now called the Leedsdale Spear corridor, right? And still maintain walkability and pedestrian safety and those issues. And it just occurs to me from time to time that what we used to do is when there was a proposal, like many of you remember, the intersection at Steele and how First Avenue came and then ended up moving around to Alameda. And but there were real designs that were presented. So here's what we could do, here's what that would take, here's what this would cost, and here's these other designs. And I guess when I think about where this is going, will these recommendations end up with those kinds of presentations?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lou, and I'm not entirely sure which recommendations you're referring to, but we will be getting into the weeds on these intersections. So, you know, our first step is to prioritize all the project, and if, you know, First Ave raises to the top, which I'm sure it will, we'll be diving into more detail on these projects. So we may not have, I'm not sure, maybe they had like 30% design or something of this, of the Steele and First Ave intersection. I don't think we'll get into that much detail unless we decide to spend that extra money on some of those projects. But we might get into a kind of a concept design, higher level, you know, what should we be removing? Maybe a turn lane or like a free turn lane, free right turn lane, or, you know, change some of, add a pedestrian median refuge island, that sort of thing. So short answer is yes. We will be getting into detail, maybe not as much detail as you're thinking of, but it'll get us into enough detail to really understand and be able to talk about trade-offs for the highest priority projects.
And I know one of the things that we've been, so there's a subgroup of this steering committee, and Richard is on it, and of course Stuart Anderson is on it, and I am on it, where we have met. We've just talked about some of the maybe higher level issues of how we're coming at this whole problem. So, and the conversations have been around the fact that we have the elephant in the room, which is the Cherry Creek West development. We've got the Pat Bro project, the large residential development in Cherry Creek East, right, basically across from Macy's. And so we've been asking, how are these projects taking into account the additional trip and just traffic generation created by those projects, and how is that being addressed?
Yeah, so I guess I would say at a high level, we are taking the developments in the new units into account in that travel model, that future scenario travel model that I've been referencing. And we'll dive into that more in the next couple of months, Lou, to kind of get you a better sense of what that looks like. In terms of determining, what exactly each development needs to do in order to accommodate the additional trips that they'll generate, that's something each development is required to do. And we're going to be asking the developments to do that. That's very specific work for their sites. So it's kind of a twofold answer. At a high level, yes, we'll be making sure to be considering all the different development and how all those new pieces will work together to change how people move in and out of Cherry Creek. But we won't be diving into specific developments and what they need to do specifically to make changes or adjust to accommodate the additional trips they're generating.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Are there any other questions? People just click on, a hand raise if you want to ask a question. Stuart and Nick, I'll just ask you two if you have anything you'd like to add at this point in time before we move on in the agenda.
I would just say, kind of echo what you're saying, Lou. We have to be very sensitive about not only the projects that you just outlined, but there's likely to be activity on the north side of First and University. And I just speaking for the bid area, we have as many as 12 projects that are going to be coming out of the ground over between now and the next 3 years. And I just think we have to think a little more globally in terms of, the impact of those projects. And we're already, First and University is such a key intersection, and it's already an intersection that doesn't function well. I think Stuart would acknowledge that. So we just need to think a little more globally, I believe, given all that's happening in this district.
Thank
I
you,
could
Nick.
add a few points. I've talked to quite a few people since the open house. My general impression is that people aren't seeing the bigger picture. It's almost as if we're piecing together improvements, but no idea where we're headed to. In a project like this, this is a community in transition. Stakeholders want to see how traffic has increased over time and to see that projection line into the future with the new development. And then, draw a line across that chart that shows where you're going to be gridlocked. And so how many people do we need to get out of cars to allow this growth? And what is the major intervention? The city came and proposed the BRT a few years back, but the study was just warming up when it ended. And no one in this group, because I was in the meetings, were ever asked whether they liked it or not. It just kind of ended when we were looking at two alternatives. And, we looked at the intersection of Steele and First, and we talked about complete streets. We've talked about things that might enhance the neighborhood, but we haven't really talked about BRT. We don't have a clear vision, not this high level fluffy stuff from Denver Moves Everyone, which is great. But what is this vision we're going to have? Is it a community around a BRT that's going to be coming through the town every 2-3 minutes, picking up passengers? How does that impact the streets that are around it? Because right now, most people kind of say there's a lot of pieces. And, You know, it's probably like hundreds of suggestions people have made, but there's no overarching theme. I don't, you know, if we said, what is on the book right now for First Avenue? There's probably 20 comments about, you know, a curb that's damaged here or a place where the crosswalk isn't really working. But what is the bigger picture? Is this going to be a complete street? Where's that BRT going to be? Is it going to be in the middle? Is it going to be on the sides? You know, is it going to take away from traffic lanes? And I think that I am being quite critical, my apologies, but I don't think that public open houses work on Zoom. The value of these public open houses are where people can stand around a map and talk to the experts and then move to the next table to learn about other aspects of the project. People need to feel engaged. And right now, most people are not connecting. And it's hard to decipher by going to the website because we haven't established that overarching vision. And there's not a sense, from my perspective, that we're treating Cherry Creek as a community unto itself. It has its own character. It has facets about it that are not like downtown or any other part of Denver. And, you know, it isn't really coalescing for me. And that makes it doubly hard when we start talking about Cherry Creek West, because we have no idea whether, you know, with what's already being built, have we maxed out our road capacity? You know, is this going to have to be a building where everybody uses transit? And is that realistic? But we don't know that. And I don't think any of us, including myself, have a handle on the traffic counts or any sense of, you know, I drive through the intersection of First and University. Sometimes I have to wait a whole cycle to get through, which is level of service F. You know, but I don't know how long is it level service F. You know, is it just a 1 hour peak? Is it a 4 hour peak we're developing? You know, what's going to happen into the future? And it's that whole story that's not emerging. But what's been done is great. It's just getting the story to work. I have no criticism of the professionalism and the great work that the consultants and the city are doing. It's just give us a sense of what we're really trying to accomplish here. Sorry for all that.
No, thank you, Stuart. I a lot of chats, people are going, yes, right on, spot on. Thank you for saying all that, Stuart. I do think that for our area and the businesses and the residences that are represented by the people on this Cherry Creek Steering Committee, it is really important because one of the things you said that I think we just need to highlight is that Cherry Creek is unique. It's got a character, and we know that Blueprint Denver identifies this corridor. We know that the increased development, even if it develops, as Nick said, to what is currently in, you know, on the table for coming out of the ground in the next several years. We have a traffic problem now. So what does that look like, and how do we address it? And how do we address it in a way that helps keep the character and keeps our residents able to enjoy the pedestrian aspect and keep people able to come in and enjoy the businesses? And that's really critical, because that's a lot of why many of us live here, and we want to keep all of that healthy and make it easier for people to come in and find a place to park and enjoy the amenities, and not say, gee, I don't want to drive in Cherry Creek because it's too hard to get in. So these are real issues for us as we look in the future. And yet I think most of us are really excited for the future. We love the way that the bid is developing out. It's not easy to live with all of the development and the closed streets and the so on and so forth, but it's coming up with the right solution that we've been living in with for many years, and we're finally seeing the result, and it's terrific. So now we have to manage any future growth. And I think Cherry Creek West will be very exciting, but we have to make sure that as it develops, we really, really focus on these issues. And I think that was my expectation of Denver Moves Cherry Creek, is that as the second, largest tax base for the city, that this would be something where we want to make sure that we forward think solutions to problems that come with this kind of development. So I agree with Stuart. I think the team is wonderful. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I just ask for your patience while those of us who are sort of detail oriented about this stuff continue to nag on those issues. And so thank you for the continued work. There's obviously a lot more work to be done. So we'll continue to try to get the word out. I do think people that have talked to me said, I can't really get my head around it. The whole thing and how to use, it's not even how to use it. You get into it and you say, well, I don't know, what are we talking about? And I think that's where having that more global vision would help people identify, oh, okay, I got it. Here's what I think about it. So, let's just go forward and see if we can't, continue to move it in a direction that makes sense to the folks that are really the beneficiaries of the launching of this program.
Lou, can I just pop in with one last comment?
Please.
I think we have to be realistic about something. This neighborhood and this business area was built to accommodate the automobile. And, you look at Cherry Creek West, where they're going to be adding another couple of thousand parking spaces. Nobody argues that we need to get more single occupant vehicles off the road. But I think it's important to recognize that in order for businesses to thrive in Cherry Creek on both sides of the street, people are still going to be taking their automobiles here. Customers are not going to go shopping at Whole Foods or Neiman Marcus and ride home on their Lime scooter. Some might, but it's not a practical solution. And I just think we have to recognize that we have to find balance between alternative modes, which can be helpful, and the automobile. And the fact of the matter is that part of the challenge that we face is that much of the traffic that comes into this neighborhood is from the region. It's not just from Denver itself. It comes from Parker. It comes from Aurora in the southwest or southeast, excuse me. It comes from Lakewood. I mean, it comes from all over. And I think this is back to what Stuart was saying. We need to have a clear mission and a more global perspective as to where this traffic's coming from. But we have to also recognize that there's an economic impact, and this is a major source of revenue for the city, and whether it's sales or property tax or all the other taxes that come out, tourism improvement, I could keep going on and on. But the automobile is not going away, and we're not all going to be driving electrics either. And I think that we have to be realistic and practical about our approach to be able to find the right balance.
Thanks, Nick. I completely agree. I drive electric. I live 3 blocks from Whole Foods, and I drive my electric over to Whole Foods because, it's groceries are heavy. So, and especially when it's cold. Yes, we have to accommodate the way people move. I do think, just for offices and those businesses, I think Stuart is spot on in terms of giving eco passes and alternative for pricing more than anything else. People, it's expensive to come in. If you work in the bid, how do you drive here, park here, and pay for that? So getting people, at least downtown, it was easy. When I was at QTech Rock, we bought eco passes for everybody. And so many people took the trains and the buses into work. And we don't have those systems to support those eco passes yet. So we really do have to look at better transit of getting more buses and better bus lines and alternative for people who don't want to drive and would gladly look for alternatives to work here. And that's where I think too, the equity piece really comes here, because we got to make it easier for people who work in the businesses in our area, who may be working at a hotel or a lower wage job at a restaurant, to get to work, to make a living. So all these thoughts have to be on the table in a real way so we can come up with real visions. And I still think one of the things we've talked about is, a real study on what these additional projects and the increase in density will bring to this problem. So, I mean, I think we just have to say, continue the work, and we all have to be at that table, because if we aren't, and we aren't working together, this ship will sail, and there will be something that people say, well, how did that happen? So we can't let that go. And I applaud all the people that continue to work on it. So anything else from anybody?
Yeah, Lou, could I jump in also? This question is for Paige largely. On a high level study, as she describes this to be, it seems as if Colorado Boulevard's being totally ignored and not mentioned. Is Dottie doing anything to work with CDOT to get them to the table to help share a vision for Colorado Boulevard? It's one of the second or third most important corridors to access Cherry Creek, and will affect how the other traffic moves through Cherry Creek. Is Paige still there?
Yeah, Bob, that's a great question. Colorado Boulevard is absolutely on our radar, and we are working with CDOT. They have a vision for a bus rapid transit corridor on Colorado Boulevard, so we're excited to kind of dive in with them on what that exactly looks like. It's great comment. And yeah, appreciate everyone's comments. It's great to hear from everybody and hear what you're thinking.
Well, thank you again for presenting. I think we'll go ahead and ask you to take the screen share off, and we'll be back in touch. Thank you for all your time. It's more than I know you wanted to spend, but we really appreciate you being here. And as we said, this is the beginning of the conversation, definitely not the end. So we look forward to more input. Okay, thank you again, Paige and Sydney, for being here. I'd like to move on in the agenda on just a couple things, because it is already 6:10. So we don't have a lot of time. I did want to tell everybody that Bill Elfenbein, who used to be on the steering committee and who used to live in the area, has moved out of the area. That's why he is no longer on the steering committee. He is also moving off of the Transportation Solutions board, and Stuart has asked me if I would consider serving on his board. I told him, as long as he teaches me what I need to know to be able to actually be of value, I would be happy to do that. It hasn't happened yet, but I did want to let everybody, I don't know, Stuart, if you want to say a few words. I understand Bill is going to be a big loss for the organization.
Yes, we've always had a representative from this group, and Bill has been very generous over the years and served as the representative of the Cherry Creek Steering Committee at Transportation Solutions. But he lives in Lodo, so that changes things. But, Lou is, well, she's amazing. And the fact that we could get her to agree to this is, a real win-win across the board. And, after I sent out the announcement to our full board, there's a lot of happy people. So thank you so much for devoting time to all of this and really helping us become a better organization and working with the community.
Well, thank you, Stuart. And I hope to represent our steering committee well. Like I said, I have a lot to learn, but I'm a pretty quick teach, and then I will promise to dedicate the energy toward this, because I think so much of this is critical for our area right now. And understanding, as Bob pointed out, where's RTD? Where's Dr. Cog? Where are the federal funds that are out there? What can we really bring to solve some of the solutions if money is the issue, and what are, what's in that toolbox? So I have a lot to learn, but thank you for inviting me, Stuart. I wanted to mention that because I really wanted to have Stuart just weigh in a little bit on at our last meeting. We had a presentation from Amy Cara, who I think is still on. Yeah, she's still here with us today. And I think there were, I know I heard from several that, there was some disappointment, if you will, about the grid, about losing that connection to the creek. I have talked to Amy. She's been very generous with her time and consideration of the fact that, yeah, we're not necessarily happy about it either. So I wanted to allow both Amy and Stuart to weigh in on that a little bit. But again, this is the time to be at the table. Once everything, once they actually file, then we can't really talk to the council. People can't really speak to us about that. So now is the time to get input. I really appreciate Amy's willingness to really listen. She gets pushed by all sides. And as Nick pointed out, we're probably going to have development on the other side of First, on the Whole Foods site. And when we get to that, maybe Nick will provide an update. But I did want Stuart and Amy to have a chance to just give us an update, because I think there have been some reactions that maybe have some teeth at this point. Amy, do you want to give us a quick update, or you don't have to?
I can. I wasn't prepared to. I actually certainly wanted to give Stuart the chance to talk about this. I'm happy to respond or to start, whatever way you like, Stuart.
Well, just a few comments, just to start out. Obviously, it's an amazing project, a lot of great things. My personal opinion as a professional is that putting in a street grid is not a good idea. It's a congested intersection. I do realize that cars will go slowly through this grid and you can close it off at different times. But the beauty of the original design was having that large park area that flowed over Cherry Creek Drive North and down into the creek. And for some reason, it's the city that wants to bring cars into the middle of the park, so to speak. And I'm exaggerating, but that's the way that I see it. And the way that they've handled the at-grade crossing on Cherry Creek Drive North is a bundle of safety issues. You have a major sidewalk with pedestrians and bicyclists coming across near what is probably the most important or second most important entrance and exit. And so it just really looked like a bad idea. But in good faith, honestly, Cherry Creek West is listening. And these concerns in many cases aren't coming from them. It's coming from the city, and it's frustrating that that's happened. But my understanding with the LDR out now and looking at that the two options are there for how we treat Cherry Creek Drive North. So I'll kind of leave it there with the question. Is that the case?
Yeah, so thanks, Stuart. Appreciate it. And I appreciate the continued dialogue we've been having with you and with you, Lou, about how we continue to work through these designs. You're correct that the LDR provides us the path to continue to explore both options. I certainly am getting the impression that it's something of an uphill battle on Cherry Creek North Drive in particular, and the concerns come from parks. For one, they have some utilities underneath the underneath the parkland that's to the south of us, and we have additional utilities. We were going to need to move closer to theirs in order to be able to accommodate that. So the concerns from parks relate to creek health, and we look forward to some continued conversations with parks about how we can best make the creek the best possible place. And if our solution wasn't the best one, then how do we really make that truly a great experience to cross Cherry Creek North Drive? Because that to us is one of the really key sides of our site, and that connection to the creek is one of the real promises we hope to deliver. So continuing to work through that design is going to be important. Pedestrians being the first priority is always our first priority, and so you know, working together to figure that out. I don't know where we all end up on that. As to the shared streets in the center, I think that's going to be another one that we're going to really need to continue to work through. It's very important to us that that be a safe and inviting place for pedestrians to be. And I think the more we can make that possible, the better we can do at getting people to park once in Cherry Creek West or North or both, and walk or move using other modalities throughout the Cherry Creek neighborhood. So we need to continue those discussions, and we're providing data to the city about how to think about what our streets are going to feel like. And then we're working on a mobility study that we've coordinated with the Dottie team to really study what are these impacts. And I think, to your point, one of the big ones is going to be making sure that people aren't circling on our site and creating additional traffic out onto the major thoroughfares. And that's a big goal for us. So I think that maybe answers some of your questions. I wish I could give you something more concrete, but what we've done is essentially provide some answers to city questions, which I think we'll get some feedback on in mid-March. Hopefully that'll help us have a better sense of what the path forward is.
Amy, I just have one request, and this has happened in similar projects. You know, the city requires these transportation demand management plans, which are essentially vehicle trip mitigation, reducing cars. And in a project as large as this, the TDM plan comes at the end before the certificate of occupancy. But the question about the traffic comes up earlier in the process. And so on the 4301 East Arkansas project, the old CDOT headquarters, they had this issue, and it was our council member Cashman who wanted to have a concept level TDM plan before the zoning changes, so that people could understand what are the major mitigations that you're going to take, because it's hard to talk about how tall a building is going to be unless you know how many cars it's going to generate and how that's going to last. They also, at the request of Councilmember Cashman, had an open house where people could actually come and talk through different measures to reduce vehicle travel. And it increased the comfort level of the community to be able to see and talk through these types of things. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we need to really focus on all the different ways that people want to get here and how we can try and encourage people not to be in the cars. And so I want to learn a little bit more from our mobility study to try and figure out how we interact with these other modalities and what we can be a part of there. I think I have the concern that you expressed earlier that we can't, for example, just say we're going to do eco passes if we don't have any transit for anybody to get on. That'll be this sort of false promise. So what are the things that we can do, and what are ways, you know, there's plenty of market driven things that you can do to help encourage people to do other things. And you can do things like having incredible, very visible bike parking that start to make people say, yeah, you know what, that's what I want to do. And it's actually easier for me to get my bike here and park that than it is for me to get my car into the garage and do that. So I'm going to choose my bike as my way to get to work, or as, you know, whatever. So I look forward to continuing that because it's really important to us that this not be a place that is 100% focused on cars. That's been a mission since the very beginning for us. So I do see a comment from Brooks in the chat about the Greenway Foundation. We have had some early conversations with them. I'm actually kicking off additional conversations with them a week from today. We had kind of needed to sit tight on our further development of that really as we got through LDR, but now it's time again to really re-engage that and that Greenway plan, and however that needs to evolve, we look forward to being a big part of catalyzing. So really looking forward to that.
Is there a way that we could be closer to that conversation or listen in or participate?
To Greenway?
Mhm.
Well, it's me
Might as
meeting
well
with
ask.
Ryan. Yeah, no, for sure. This one in particular is me meeting with Ryan Ades, the new executive director, in a coffee shop over by his office, just to really kick that all back up. I mean, certainly when we get back into some big planning, I know this neighborhood put a lot of effort. A lot of people on this call here put a lot of effort into that Greenway plan. So we definitely don't want to go off marching in some direction without you all. I just want to make sure that I understand sort of all of their key priorities and make sure that we can be part of that. And really, I think, you know, the conversations I had with Jeff when he was still ED and with Ryan since are, if having a development that is right here on the creek can be a catalyst, let us figure out how to be that. And I think that can actually potentially impact some of these big moves in Denver moves as it relates to, you know, both transportation and recreational use along there.
Well, thank you, Amy. I didn't really mean to put you on the spot. I just wanted
No,
you to
that's
give
fine.
give you a chance to say, oh no, everything she said, no, that's wrong. But thank you for not doing that and for weighing in. We so appreciate that you show up for these. I know everybody is busy. It's 6:24. We will end by 6:30, which now puts the pressure on, I think, just I'm going to turn it over to Nick. I don't see Jeremy here today to give us a quick update, and then I want to just close out by telling you about our forum. So, Nick.
Always helps to unmute. I'll be brief. A couple of things that we'd want you to know. We've talked before about the pedestrian light project in Cherry Creek North and the retrofit of some 300 light poles. And I want you to know that we've entered into an agreement with our electrician, and we expect to see hopefully full implementation sometime in the fall. So parts are being put together right now. We're a little worried about supply chains still coming from overseas, but we got a big hurdle out of the way there with the contract. Daylight savings time will soon be upon us, and when it does, our holiday lights come down. So you'll see that activity happening as well. I know it's disappointing to a lot of people, but we got to let our trees grow so the lights will come down. You know, one thing that Councilmember Sawyer didn't mention, maybe she wasn't aware of it, but we are working with District 3 on a very progressive business watch program. We've got to take crime into our own hands at this point. Denver police can only do so much. They're stretched very thin. Estimates are they're down up to 200 officers at any given time. And we live in the largest geographic police district in Denver. So our guys and gals are really stretched thin. So there will be more to come on that, but we're excited about that project and kind of helping our businesses learn how to become the eyes and ears for one another and being good neighbors, just much like a neighborhood watch, but with a little few enhancements as well. And the last thing I would tell you is that Bethany can chime in here as well. We have confirmed with the campaigns that they would be available for a mayoral forum. This would be a runoff forum with the final two candidates on May 3rd. We have confirmed with Bromwell that they'd be happy to host it and make a place for us. Did I miss anything there, Bethany?
Nope. I think that everybody was very flattered to be invited to a runoff forum. They're like,
Right.
oh no, I don't have anything on my calendar past April the 4th.
So I think we were early to the game on that one. So, and look, this is a district very important to whoever becomes mayor because people in this district vote. And so we're very confident that they'll be there, and we're going to find someone who's a terrific moderator, and we'll see where it goes. Should be fun. So May
Well,
3rd
and-
on your calendars.
Okay, and as you know, Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association is holding a District 5 and at-large candidate forum at Bromwell on March 7th. We will be recording that. We will upload it to the YouTube and our website. I wanted to just, and by the way, Bethany and Nick, I think I've copied you guys on the information about our moderator, who is Dennis Ryerson. He is a former editor of the Indianapolis Star, Denver Post, the San Jose Mercury News, and some others. He was also he's run presidential debates because he was the editor of the Des Moines Register. And so he moderated 3 nationally televised presidential debates and won national awards for his service to the First Amendment for coverage of issues involving that and children. He's also on the Cherry Arts Board, so he's really familiar with Cherry Creek North. And he serves as the chair of the CPR community advisory board. He's retired. He moved back to Denver because his kids are here. Really terrific guy. Linda and I are meeting him over at Bromwell to walk that. And just Nick and Bethany, we have done a lot of work with Bromwell to figure out how this works, and we will be filming it. Not just we will have it on Zoom, but we'll have an independent filming.
Nice.
So if you guys want to talk about this, I think we mentioned we'd be happy to co-host that with you. If you're already seeking a, you have to get a permit to use that. So if you want to use our resources to get that permit, we're filed with them already. So please do reach out. We're very excited about that forum. And it is now 6:30. So with that, we'll bring this to a close. Bethany, Nick, let's connect on all of this. And in the meantime, we'll be getting information out to all of you on where you can find that. We are trying to summarize the obvious positions on things like who's for and against the camping ban. We're not going to repeat the same old questions. Our questions are going to be focused on Cherry Creek and this area. We worked through a list of questions. We've sent that over to our moderator. He's done this at a very high level for a very long time. And we hope to have good input because we do not think there's enough time for a true debate. I hope it'll be a true debate in May. So more to follow. And thank you all for being here. Have a really good rest of your evening.
Thank you, Lou.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, thank you. Great meeting.